Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm going to do what I promised. We're going to paint a couple of Canada geese in flight here. I'm probably going to put some like misty clouds, maybe a few trees right down in here that are in and out of the mist. I've done that on a couple of paintings that were really quite successful. Maybe a streak of blue up there for some blue sky. I don't know. We'll see what we're going here. Okay, so I have it all sketched out here. Those of you that are a part of our memberships and stuff, I will put final photos, some reference ideas for you, and I will put a photo of this drawing that you can use to help you design yours. Okay. Also, I'll put that over into our membership area. So the board, I'm using a 1/4 inch oak ply here that I gave one coat of the Heritage Canvas Prep Medium. You could also use just white paint. I don't like to use gessels or anything because a lot of them contain vinyl, and your brush slides over the surface too much. So, I don't really care for that. I like it to grab, especially when I'm painting all the Prima techniques. So I have that. So this is 30 inches across this way, 20 inches across this way. You can reduce it or decide, whatever size that you want to do. I am going to start out here with the Heritage and the palette. Now the palette that I have here, all of the lists of all the colors are in the video descriptions. Anything that you're looking for on our channel, check the video description. All the links there. What kind of boards I use, brushes I use, paints, and sometimes there's some coupon deals in there too. So check the video description and I'll list out all these colors there. But basically it's what we call our YouTube favorite palette. And today I'm also going to add some medium beige and some light gray, which are just real quick. They're just real quick colors, pre-mixed colors that will allow me to do some stuff a little faster so I don't have to do some of the mixing. We want to paint this alla prima. We want to paint it kind of quickly. When you're painting a can of goose like this, you can get into a lot of details of the feathers. And, I'm not going to treat it like a portrait. I'm going to treat this like a painting. I'll explain more of that as we get going. Okay, but let's get going. I'm going to take a 2-inch brush here and just some water, some light gray here, and we'll lighten that up with a bit of white. This is the open medium. I also have some extender medium out. We'll explain a lot more about those as we go. But I'm going to start out with kind of a real light gray, maybe ever so much, just the tiniest bit to the blue cast of it because the gray is a little warm. We'll put just a hint of the blue in it. And I'm not going to cover up all my white that I have, and I want to use just water, kind of thin here. This is almost like a patina, what we call a patina, giving the board a patina a look here. So I want to leave some of the white, some of the ins and outs, and I just want this real soft gray here into the back. Now I'm going to be doing some fog, mist, and stuff like that, and just might be too much there. Yeah, that's a good color. Some more water, thin, and I'll go in and out, and I'll be adding more stuff to this. Now I don't want to get too heavy there, Dave, that you eliminate my drawing. If you ever do, you just take a paper towel. I always paint with paper towels all the time. Just back it out a bit, and so you don't have to fight. You're looking for your original concept of your drawing. I'm a big advocate for putting on sketches and drawings, and then like all the masters, they always said try to preserve your drawing as much as possible and keep it accurate. Even if you're painting an alla prima and a quick impressionism, which I consider myself more of an impressionist type of artist than I do a realist. For years I was a realist, now I'm more impressionistic, and I love that. So you don't get wrapped up in all of the details, So, and there's just lots of things that you can do. I mean, with your painting here about making it a little bit more realism. Like we could take this bird is such a good size here. We could take it right up to a, more of a realistic one. Now, as far as reference, I have it because this is a big long one. It's taking up the whole screen there. I do have my monitor. I usually paint with a monitor. Those of you that ask me, if, I don't always, you see me paint with little photos and stuff, but right here I have a 42-inch big monitor here, TV monitor, and I usually put some large photos up on it to reference. And I like to use the monitor because it shows color depth a little bit more than what your printer can sometimes show. Okay, so I have that. So when you see me looking up here like this, I'm going to be referencing. I have quite a few Canadian geese right up there, and that's what I'm referencing. And I'll put one of these photos for this main one over again into the membership. Let's come in here. As a matter of fact, let's see if we can zoom that camera in just a bit more here. And so we come in and we'll work on the main goose here for a little bit. Let's drop it down just a bit here. Release the catch there. There we go. So we'll work right into here. I'm going to start out, there's a lot of times I tell you, I'll start backgrounds and I'll do that kind of stuff. And with wildlife, a lot of times you hear me say, I want to get right into that face and get some of that eye and that face done, because that's going to set the contrast for everything that's going to go on our painting. Okay, and that's what I'm going to do. And luckily, see, this dries real quick. I've got some nice mottled color in through here. This is going to be great. I'm going to take a small, this is a number 4 filbert. This isn't the fusion. Normally you see me paint, with my fusion brushes, which I like and which I'll be using here. But anytime I do wildlife and I go for detail, I go to a little stiffer brush. It's not as stiff as a bristle brush, okay, but it's a little softer than the fusion. The fusion also is done as a little filbert, but I like the springiness here from a synthetic. So this is the same brush. I mean, the same company and everything like that, but it is synthetic. And you'll find all these links into the video description. So I'm going to take a violet, some Phthalo Blue, some the red violet. I sometimes like to add a little green, a little brown into that, burnt sienna. That makes a nice black. And I'm just going to come in here super small, use just the corner of the brush there, and I'm going to tap in the eye of that goose there. Might as well just take this off a bit. So the other one that's back here, I'm going to do this one a little bit more atmospheric. So I won't have it quite as dark, so I'm just going to whisper the eye there in. So, I mean, you can just barely see the difference between the super opaque one. I'm going to make that just a little darker and more opaque. Just a little bit of difference between the opaqueness and then the transparency of it. We can push that back. But I want this one to be back, slightly higher, but back, and not in the mist, but a little more atmospheric. I want the painting to concentrate in here. That's the plan. And I always believe in starting with a good plan. Let's take some of that dark. Now, this wonderful goose here is going to have a lot of dark on it, which means I'm going to be changing a lot my darks. So I'll be switching between basically these here. Sometimes I'll go the blue and the Naphthol Red Light. That makes a beautiful dark color as well. That's a little different. You can hopefully, it's really hard sometimes in videos to pick it up, but you can see the difference here. Matter of fact, that might be a real good one. Slightly onto the blue side, just a touch to the blue. We'll come in here and we'll start the beak here, the top part of the beak, and I'm going to use small little tapping strokes, sometimes a little longer one, but we want to model everything on here. So model means that we don't mix up everything really well, and especially when we come to these feathers and stuff here. Now there'll be let's just take a little gray, maybe even a little beige with this right along the side here. See, the beige is just a beautiful warm color, and it'll take it off light and warmth. Let's add and I know it's really small, but we want to add just a touch of that movement into the beak right there. And I know it's hard to see. It's going to be, some parts of this will be a little hard to see because of the nature of the darks that we work on. But trust me, it's going to be great. Okay. So let's come in here. You got to have fun, guys. Got to have fun. Don't get stressed on it. Let's put a little bit lighter lower part, and then we'll go right back to finish up the line there on that. We'll go right back to our dark using just the chisel of the brush. Now I don't like to, so we see just a bit of her beak right there, or his beak. I don't like to use like round brushes because in the detail, I very seldom do I do that because, and I use them in like some birds you see me use, I use them for feathers and stuff, but they tend to leave a little ridge of paint. And since I'm not, sure exactly everything that's going to go on here, I want to stay away from ridges of paint right away right now, especially in your first part of your painting. So especially those of your beginners, when you start a painting, stay away from forming ridges of paint with your first couple of looks through something, because that will interfere with anything that you want to do in the future, okay? So we stay away from that. Let's get a little bit of warmer of that gray, and we'll come right up here. Let's see, that goes up her nose here, her nose up to her face, a little higher here before it drops back down. So we'll push some of that in, and then and I'm just going to make subtle tone changes here. Let's grab a little bit of this color. And you can mix in a little extender into some of this if you want to keep the color. You don't have to mix the color very often here. Now, so I'm going to stay kind of dark. This has a little bit of beige, a little bit of that reddish kind of color in there. So the front part here will be a little warmer. Okay, and then we'll go in just a touch darker, maybe a touch of blue, which will be cooler. You can see the difference, see? Even though you're working with darks, temperature's a big thing, guys. Let's leave just a little bit there for what's going to be the eye ring. But see the difference between the top and the bottom there. When you're painting a Canada Goose here, that's where I get a lot of the interest, especially when doing blacks, is I get it through temperature variation. Let's warm this part right in here, just a bit of that beige. And see, it's really easy to get that in there. And see, it just adds a bit more interest in there. And later on, when I decide to maybe advance something or add more interest to the goose here, I could actually use some textures in there, which would be great. I always give myself the ability to do some textures. Let's put a little darker again right in there. So that's good. Let's take some of that dark. We'll have, now don't take too long a stroke. And sometimes I'll model this. This is what I model like this, is that I use my brush in different directions. So I'll get some variation of the color coming off of there. Let's go a little more blue into this here. Just a touch more, maybe a bit violet, so it's a bit darker purpley kind of. That's one of your dark, cold colors, and that's a good one right here to have right on the top of her head. I'm just going to call her, call this one her all day. So I'll push some of that right back in there. Okay. So as I'm putting that in, and I know it's real hard for you to see, but you can see some of the different tones in there. That works really great. Now, and see, I can see those on the monitor. You can't always see those in a photo, but on the monitor I can see those subtle changes, and that's why I like that. Let's carry this way just a bit more. Here. Now I hit just an edge of burnt sienna in there, and I really like that. Let's go back a little warmer, right back in here, and right back behind this white band that will go in there. We'll go maybe a bit warmer. So you'll pick up some of that nice warmth, and then you'll go to the dark cools at the top of the head here, and then we'll go back to some warmth right back down here, and then head right back into some of our cools. Now I'm just going to take this, as a matter of fact, I'm going to add just a touch of extender to this. And I like extender because this will cause the brush to slide also a little bit. So I use extender to paint thinner and I also use it whenever I want the brush to slide. So I'm going to put some warmth, matter of fact, maybe just a touch more of that right up in there. And I'm going to work the warmth here for just a bit. Coming back, don't take too long of strokes here. And then I'll go back to the cool. Let's go back to our violet, little green. That's still a real pretty cool. Watch the difference here. You'll see that difference. See that? Boom. That cool, very dark here. And we can use that to model up just a bit there and add some interest right there in her. So it's not just a black and white. You know, you have some modeled interests of warmth, and you'll have shines and shimmers off of her feathers here as well, or his feathers as well. And so then we'll come back in. Now let's go slightly, let's take some of this violet down here. Let's lighten that up. See where we are. That's where I wanted it. Slightly bluish. Let's add just a touch of extender to that. That will thin it, keep it wetter. Let's drop some of that right down here onto the bottom side, right there of her band there, her light band. Maybe I'll warm it slightly. I paint for temperature, guys. This is what, if you think temperature, this is what's going to give you the most interest in a lot of your paintings. Think temperature. Let's put in a mark that's a little dark, of lighter, with a bit of that beige in there. See, I like that beige because I can go warm really quick. Let's drop that right in there. That's better. And we'll push that right up in there. Now, let's just step off to the side, lighten this up. Not quite the pure white, a little bit of gray into that. And let's just pull a bit more right up in here. We'll let that just kind of, that band just kind of go soft in there. You can step back and do what we call a half tone right in between those two. Push it there, work back and forth. Don't stroke too many times. Notice how I change tones before I stroke. That is what's going to keep the feathery look to her. So change that tone. Let's go almost pure white now. Just a bit of touch of that right up there. Here. Just like that. So you can see even as I'm basing her in, I'm getting some of this interest, you know. Let's take maybe a bit of this kind of gray here. Right around. You don't really see too much of the eye ring on these little guys, but it's there, but it's usually into the grays and stuff. So I'll put that down. Now I'm going to take this real cool, slightly blue, maybe a bit of green into this, real cool dark, and I'm going to very carefully here kind of tap and paint up into it, and I'll set the size of that eye ring there with the dark. I'll use the dark to help me set that in. And before I go any further here, I'm going to take not pure white, but a little bit of the gray right on the corner of my brush. And this is like the definition of small. And you see, I'll put that in there. Now, it's too big and I came off size. And that's okay. I know that's going to happen because I'm using a big brush for this. I don't like using a round and putting a dot. What I do like to do is just come back and tap the edges of it with the dark there, and I paint it right down into the size that I want. Okay, that's the way in which I like to approach it. Now, what I can do in here is I can come in here really easy and add some more interest. And I think I'm going to, before I go further, I'm going to build up in here a bit more, switching back and forth between my darks and those beiges here, and adding some of those light tones in here, building a little more paint. You know, one of the things that I always tell all of my students, and it's kind of funny, but it is true, that we're artists. We get interest through paint, and if you need more interest, use more paint, basically. And it really is so true, guys. Let's get some of that dark and just run that through and a couple of things here, there. And I'll leave just, I like that little hit I did there. It just left a bit of that. So let's leave that right now. And let's go, we'll put a little extender. Usually when I use acrylics and stuff, if I'm going to leave this brush for a little bit, I'll put some extender in it. Just set it to the side there. It won't dry. It'll be wet for a long time. And that gives me a long time to work with it. And I'll find the world's perfect used brush here. I like my older brushes when I paint a lot of birds. And let's come in and let's start. So now this is going to set some of our contrast here for our painting. Let's come in and we'll take, underneath her belly and wings and stuff here is the warmer color, and it's almost like a beige, maybe beige and a little bit of that blue. See, that's beautiful color. And if I model between these two, model means don't mix them up real well, just kind of put them in your brush. That ought to work. Now, I'm going to put this in kind of thin with some extender here as well. And I'm just going to come in here. So I want it a little thin so I get highs and lows of the color. And she has a lot of bands pulling down. So I want to put those bands in. We use a lot of our calligraphy, guys, what we call the brush calligraphy. And so usually when I work my brush, I kind of read on the bird, and when you see that on her feathers are kind of like pulling down in bands. And so I use the brush calligraphy with a little bit of textures and highs and lows from that extender there, see? But it gives a feeling to the body here of the bird. Now she grays up, blues up slightly, cools slightly here. Maybe even a bit of that purple, that is more purpley. So here's a warm, here's a cool. Right up here as it comes to the front part of that wing. And see, I'll try to make it, these strokes here right in there, as efficient as possible, which means I try not to use too many strokes when I put that in. Let's add just a touch of warmth right in there. And that's what I do. I love the warm and cool on those little tiny tone changes there. Let's take this just a bit different, maybe a little bit more purpley here. And that's what I like to do. I like to constantly change my tone. Now, I'll lighten up. So here's where I was. Here's this nice light, cooler tone into her shadow part right back here. And I'll kind of follow the calligraphy of her body here. She gets, and that's the beautiful thing, is that big, huge photos of her. You can see all these tones. And when I printed her out on my printer, I couldn't see them, And now I can. I can see them quite clearly because I have it right here on the big monitor. And so it is a great thing to use, is the big monitor there. And I'll leave some of these little calligraphy strokes like that, which is going to give her some interest to her body. And a little bit onto the edge of the brush, some of that nice light right there. Sometimes I'll just put it in there and then pull it, the calligraphy of her body there, down like that. See, I like those kinds of little strokes, those little hits and stuff there. There's just a little bit of a light right there going up and in. That's pretty good. Let's put just a bit, head it slightly warm, and this is where I like to hit and follow that calligraphy just a bit there. See, just like that. That's kind of nice. That could be built a little. That could be a good area towards the end of the painting for some textured light right in there. That is just the sun kind of hitting there on her body. That's kind of nice. I like that. I'm going to take that same kind of look right up over here. A little bit of texture. A little bit push. Something about the fingers there. It just works so well. And that's the other thing, I'm an acrylic painter. All the acrylics that I use here, the Heritage, they're completely non-toxic. There's nothing toxic in it whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the company is a green company. They use nothing that hurts or harms the environment. So it's easy for me to touch my fingers in here and stuff. If you're using other things like oil paints and stuff, don't use your fingers. Just grab a brush and use a brush. but don't use your fingers. I was an oil painter for a long time, and I got very, very sick from touching my colors. So don't do that. So there's a little softer bit there. Okay, let's kind of model up the back bottom down here where the gray. So I'll just take some of this kind of dry and just kind of, this is called a scumble, this technique. Just kind of scumble that along in there. Break up some of her. Let's put some of this warmth right down in there. Scumble that in there as well. Okay, and then we'll pick up some of our whites. We'll gray it slightly, right in between the two, actually. Let's just grab some of that. And I'm going to start some calligraphy here, pulling down like this, which is going to suggest a lot of her feathers. Without, now, if I'm going to paint a portrait, I might come in there and specifically paint the feathers. If I want to paint her soft like this, I'll just find the calligraphy, the way in which these feathers kind of flow, and I just do that. Now, there's some of them that are going to come this way, so I'll just use my small brush this way and hit a few, pulling this way. Just tap and lift up like that to give some of that mottled look to her there. And so I'll go back and forth here between these two, setting up some of that look here. Let's pull a bit more here. But I don't want to get here, I don't want to get too wrapped up in all of these feathers, because I want the viewer's eye to come right up in here. So I want to give the impression, we're going to paint the impression. I want to give the impression of the bands of feathers and stuff in here without having stuff that's just too precise or too perfect. So I'll just do a bit of this right in there like that and give some of the impression of those feathers. And then I'll come back with a little more light and hit some that are going to be a little lighter here. So when I paint the impression, I don't worry. Basically what you do, and it's a good impression, is you squint down, and when you squint down, and I know it sounds funny, but when you squint down and you look, it takes away a lot of the intermediate values. So you break the painting down into light and dark, and that will help you see the movement of the light and the dark. And so basically when you impressionists will get rid of some of the smaller movement that you just don't need into a painting. Where a realist, like when I was a realist, we would paint all of that movement that we saw. Light, dark, medium value, halftones, we would paint it all here. But as an impressionist, I don't paint it all here. Now let's just model up some of this, getting smaller. Just tap your brush, the corner of your brush. I love an old fusion like this because it doesn't do it perfect, see? So now, just real quickly, you get that and you take a look at that. Now, those of you that paint with me, that's camera 1. It's sitting at 8 feet, okay? So this is what it's going to look like when I put it up. I have a place in the gallery that I want to put this. And so hopefully I got to do it pretty good, okay? So that'll start the body there. Now, her or his or her, whatever, the legs here, we're going to do a dirty, maybe a bit of the yellow, burnt sienna, some blue, and you get some burnt sienna in there that keeps it from going too blue. We'll do this kind of dirty color here kind of first here, and we'll just quickly, and see, I like the model. See where some of the blue comes out? And we're going to let some of the other color come out here too. Let's get up here with the burnt sienna and the blue. So it's a bit different, maybe a bit darker right up here by her little knee. Pull that down. See, and I'll let some of that streaky color come in. That's where it gets pretty. And you got to let what happens happen. Now if I overstroke that too much, I'll lose some of that interest that I just real quickly got in that look by modeling my brush. So I'll try not to. That photo shows the light kind of hitting the lower part here, a little more yellow. So let's just drop in a bit of that yellow there. Here. They have not so graceful looking feet, let me tell you. Matter of fact, we can model that just a bit here. And so I'll just tap along a little bit, just like that, just to add some interest to the foot there. And maybe a bit darker right up here, and just lift off, let that shadow just stick up in there. Real quick and easy way. You know, I follow Sargent, who always said, John Singer Sargent, if you ever researched him, he was like the master of all the prima. And he was a 19th century, turn of the century painter. And, you know, his paintings are just magnificent. But he always said, paint with as large a brush as possible. Now we pick up just a bit of that other foot, which I forgot to draw on there. Right over here, so I get to sketch it right now. We'll just drop this dark, make that a bit dark, maybe out towards that point like that other one there. And I'll generally lose the edges back there, so I'll do this, and that helps recede it to the other side there. So we'll do that there. Now let's come right back in here. We've got this light area. This is beautiful color in here that I can start working some lights in here. Let's put some of that in, get some of this blue right over here. That's real nice for right down in here. And let's get just, if I ever want to warm it, if I feel it's too cold, just grab a little bit of that medium beige. Look at how wonderful that just warms that up a bit. Let's just pull that right in there and try not to have too much texture there. And maybe a bit lighter, warmer here, right along the bottom. Yeah, she has a little break in her body right there. And I'll just leave that just modeled like that. See, just those colors. That's it. See how quickly with a stroke you can get a lot of interest. If you don't mix it up real well on your palette, try not to. There's a lot of beginning students will do this, okay? We'll scrub. See, watch what happens here. That if I scrub on the palette like this, I take it to one color real quick. So don't do that. What you want to do is tap. Tap it like this. See, the tapping of it does not mix those colors. So I would say about a good 70% of my students, when I come around in the seminar or so, and they've got all of it the same, I look at their palette and they're scrubbing on their palette rather than tapping. And that's a big problem. So try not to do that. Let's actually even add some open medium. Now, open medium will make it stiffer. It'll dry slow. It's also going to thin it out here a bit. See how it's thinner? And so I'll push some of that in there. I'm going to want to get some light and dark into this area here. Let's grab a bit of the burnt sienna, some blue and some medium beige here. Model this into another color. Right down. Oh, that's a pretty color. Right down in there. Push that in. Right down there. We could lighten up that foot of her, but we have some light come in here in a second. That works really well. Let's put a mark of that right up here. The transition of that tail mantle there. And then we're going to go lighter. So I'm just going to step off to the side. I want pretty much white almost right here. Make a heavy stroke of that. And a bit of texture is okay. I really want that that's the light part. And on that photo, it's quite light right in here. Has a slight climbing angle right here for her. Right there. So we'll leave some of that. And we'll come pull down and then right over, just a touch of that over the foot there. That will sink that into the body. And then we'll come in here and add another little light, okay, right in there. And then we'll come over here, right up over here, like that. Yeah, that works. Try not to stroke it too many times, Dave. Okay, so we'll take that down now. That's going to come, so it's going to come right down in here and round that corner just a bit. So I need a touch more light in there. And so I'm always looking for the calligraphy. So now on her tail, these are pulling down slightly. So I'll leave some that unmixed color there, so it leaves a few streaks so you can see the shape of the tail. See, so you want to use this model brush. You don't want to mix up these colors. You want this model brush so you can get the shape of that tail in there. Now this one down here is we're gonna come right in here like this and lift up right up through some of that shadow right there. Don't stroke it too many times. You'll make it one color and get rid of all that shadow. Go back, redress your brush with just a little bit of paint, and let's pull it one more time. There, see, and so you can get a little interest. And that's staying wet there because I picked up just a bit of that open medium there, so that stays wet. So that gives a nice look. And I can come back in, maybe give right in here a bit more paint, bit more texture. If you want texture, pull slow. Pull slow and the texture will lay off your brush. And so what I do is I touch it lightly and then I just lift it off and I get a little of that texture which helps form that tail. Now let's go back here towards our blue. Burnt sienna, a little green here. Nice dark, even a little touch of that red. Also towards our darks. Not quite to the black though, but very much, very, very close. Let's even get a little violet out here. And some of that. That's pretty color right in there. Okay, dark, dark here. Let's come right back here on that tail. Lift up, pull slow. Let some of that start to fade away there. Okay, I'm going to give myself a fresh paper towel. I always have a paper towel in my hand to wipe off extra paint. Some people say, well, you waste paint. No, you don't. No, you don't. I mean, I have enough paint out here to do like 3 of these paintings here. But you don't waste paint. And all the paint I have out here is maybe $1 worth of paint. So you don't waste paint. You know, you really don't. And you spend more for a gallon of gasoline right now than you do wasting paint. Okay, so let's get some of that warmth. Let's head a bit more. See, you can barely see that burnt sienna there, but it's awesome. And then we'll go maybe more of that color. So I added some burnt sienna, and then I'm going to add some medium beige right up here, which will give a beautiful transition here to her body feathers right in there, and I'll just tap through that a bit right in there and get a nice transition of those tones. Very quick, very impressionistic there. I love that kind of look there, like that. Now I'm just going to wipe my brush and I'm going to just leave that dirty color in there. I'm going to go back up to some light and I'm going to rework some of this light right up in here. Just tap that through right in there. So I want to bring out, so I really notice on the photo that this is one of the lightest areas on her, but by the time I put this on, this really started to get dark. So I want to lighten this up just a bit and add a bit of the little tip of the brush, some calligraphy here. That is just gonna, yeah, that works better. Let's put just a touch more of that light right there. With the lights, you know, a lot of times acrylics dry down darker, so you have to go back and work your lights, usually several times. And so, you know, that's not a problem. I'm gonna take a bit more and we'll pull slow, leave that light right up there, like that. Maybe pull that down. I want to get that nice light, and that's a nice light band on this one right there. Right there like that. That's pretty good. A bit of the down here. So we leave just a bit of that modeling there like that. That looks pretty good. Now we're going to come right around the corner here with this feather in here. Well, actually, let's put one more here. Get that. See, that gives just a bit of the movement. It's time I start to build some of those textures. Now, let's go back to some violet here. That's really good. Some burnt sienna and violet. A little more blue. Nice dark here. So blue, the red violet, and some burnt sienna get a nice solid look to the dark right there. And I want this, even though I see it in the photo very clearly, I want this to recede, so I'm going to blur that back edge just a touch like that. Just take a bit of that off so it recedes. And we're going to streak forward here, just like this. Now I could thin this out. That would probably be easier. Thin that out with some extender, which will cause my stroke to slide a little bit more. See how much easier that is to do that? That's one reason why I use the extender. And I'm going to want to leave those streaks. So I'm going to try to paint this tail as simplistic as possible here. Now let's warm it. We're going to come forward. Let's warm it with some medium beige right here. Pull that one right there. Okay. That looks pretty good. Let's warm that and lighten that right in here. So it's a little warmer and lighter. Just a touch of that mottled up blue stuff there. Let's pull that around so the tail is lightening as it's coming around this way here. So we try to paint that as simplistic as possible. We look at the tail as to what's happening in the tail, and we can streak that a little bit like that. So the tail goes on pretty easy there. Now, I want to get a bit more of the, it's beautiful how that tail comes around and incorporates into her body. And I can't do it with this old brush here that is all flared out here. Not even that one. So I'm going to use my more detailed brush here. And I'm going to be a little careful here as I bring this tail all the way back up here like this and out. Here, pull out a couple of times, leaving a little calligraphy there on the edge so it looks like feathers there. Bringing that out. And let's touch into a bit of dark. Bring that dark edge up here just a bit, right into that back foot that I put there, but that's okay. That looks pretty good. Now, I'm going to just pinch wipe that color out of my brush, come back up over here to my lights, maybe a bit of some of this gray, so I don't like to use pure white. And I'm going to pull down here, just right on that edge to kind of oval up this edge, but put the light of the tail on top of the dark of the tail there. Just like that. That looks pretty darn good, I think. Maybe a bit of the light and beige here. So just use my mottled brush. Let's just pull a bit of that right in there to incorporate those colors. Maybe a mark or two of that warmth right in here. Now see, I'll put on, when I do that, I usually put on too much. Then I'll take a version, doesn't even have to be the same color of the dark, and paint it out. And then that gives you some of the highs and lows and little shimmers that you would have there, you know, on that edge. Let's maybe a bit of the brown or so here. Maybe more beige and light here. Model that, tap that. Okay. Yeah, that's good. That's a good color. Right on that edge. Work that light edge right there. That's pretty. So now you look at her body there, or his body, whoever it is. you can see that pretty clearly now, right? Okay, let's go back. Now we're going to work the feathers, and this is where we have to kind of decide. I'm going to go up in size of brush here just a bit, back to my 10. And I'm going to read the feathers, the warms and the cools and stuff here are the feathers. And I'm first going to, we have the primaries, and I misdrew this one. The primaries come to right about here. Then you have the secondaries, and you have these over media coverts and stuff. So we're going to paint the underside of the wing and the back of the wing. And really, when you paint you can see right in here, I got the wrong angle on them. On these secondaries here, these will be the primaries, here will be the secondaries. And they're very stripy on the Canada Goose. And so that can be very distracting for what I want in the painting. So I might soften those out a bit here. But you could have a whole lot of coverts up here. You could have a whole lot of detail if you want to put that in. So what I'm going to do, after long explain here, I'm going to start out kind of soft. And so I'm going to take some of this beige. I'm just going to use some water here with this. And I'm basically, and I'm going to thin this out here first. Thin it way out. So as I come in here, and I'm just lightly, I'm going to paint the underside of the wing because I want it to come forward of that back wing there. Okay, and I'm just lightly going to come in here and just paint for a bit of in and out movement here. Now, I just put those on in the wrong angle. Here's actually the best angle when you're setting in those secondaries. They got to come back like this. See, and you can hold your brush if you want to do it really simplistic. That's the way. And then as it heads up here, that's the secondaries. And as it heads right there to the break, then it'll go into the primaries. But you can see some of that nice, streaking. Now we can come back in here and make more of a feathered edge just by pulling in here. But we have that back feather to put in there as well. So this is what I want. This in and out this way here. And see how that grabs, how the paint grabs. That's why I like this rather than gessos and stuff, because the paint grabs and gives you all of this interest. Whereas if it's too much, gesso has sometimes too much vinyl in it and it just smears around, and I don't like that. So I'm going to put some darker color right up here. Pull that in and out and down there. Sometimes break that up with even some beige. So as you're pushing some of these colors in, we're doing this simplistic, push some colors in there so you get some of that immediately, some of that color change. Let's get some of our violet, our nice dark violet, and some of that green. That's beautiful darks here. They'll be right there where the primaries come in. There'll be a little dark color right there. Okay, let's take some of that with some of this beige, which is quite a pretty color. A little bit more, maybe some gray in there too. That's real close. Maybe a touch. If it looks too blue, get just a bit of that burnt sienna in there. Oh, that's pretty color. This will help do these front underside here, this way. And see, model that. Don't paint too long with the same color. Model that, change that up here. So you get some different colors, but pull the shape of that wing, okay? Pull the shape of that wing. Now, for the coverts, the next line of coverts are going to be a little lighter here. So we'll come in here, and we're painting this impressionistically, right? We're not going to come in here and work every feather like we could, but we're not. We're painting it impressionistically. Size 10 brush. Pull it, move it over, move it over, move it over, move it over, so you get those streaks. That's what's going to give you the feathers, okay? And then there's another line. So these are your secondaries out here, and your secondary covert. These are called your secondary coverts that come right out here. I'm going to darken down, maybe warm this, just a bit of the burnt sienna here. I'm going to follow secondary coverts, bend down just a bit here. That went out too far here. Now, they have little light edges to them and stuff, and we'll address that in just depending on how much detail and stuff we want to give those here. And lighten, or darken actually, just a touch. And we'll just leave that little edge of light there from the original one there. So this is very suggestive of those feathers, see? Now, what I do a lot of times is I'll don't even have to have the same color here. I'm going to paint back and forth right in here and soften that line before I push it in perfectly here. That gives just a bit more interest. And then I'll come back in here a little lighter, maybe a little warmer, a little different here. And we'll pull back and stop and leave the edge of that light right there on those coverts. But I got all those colors going in there now, see? And that's what's making it pretty. We can take some of this dark and model up just a bit here so we get some of that extra look of those feathers right in there. Okay? We'll take a bit more of that dark blue, that nice violet, a little bit of the nice warm burnt sienna. You could use more on the corner of your brush here and add some. Remember, we're doing impressionistic. Don't paint every feather. There's a lot of the bird portraits and stuff in there that I do that I paint those feathers with you. But, you know, on a painting like this, which I want it to be more impressionistic, those lines of those feathers can really get overpowering. So I'm blurring them down. See? I'm blurring them down. Now, so that works really well. There's lighter, warmer here, maybe a bit of the gray. Don't mix it up real well. Let's even add some open medium. This will keep it thick while also transparenting it up a bit and keep it wet longer. You have these larger, what are these, the medial culverts, something like that. They're right down here, a couple of big ones underneath the wing. Actually, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we're going to take 7 feathers down to maybe 3 or 4 right in here and give the impression of them, boom, just like that, but not do them. And then we'll tap this a little bit lighter, just some small movements there. And if I need to differentiate between the feather groups there, I'll usually, take a little dark. I usually don't do it with light. I like to draw and paint with dark. So I'll usually go back to my darks and let's put just a touch of the light out here, just like that. See, a bit of that light. It gives you the look of feathers without getting precise, see? And, you see some artists in there that are fantastic artists. I'm not saying anything but that they go in there and spend all the time onto the feathers. And I love it. I absolutely love it. But I like this. I like the feeling of the feathers without having all of the harsh lines that can, to me, be kind of distracting. But you can paint out slightly. Just take your brush with like a little bit of the dark edge and see a bit more of that feather if you want. Now, while that dries, I'm going to let that dry up a minute. I'm going to go back, my blue, green, some violet here, bit of the burnt sienna here, nice dark, model that so it's not super mixed up, and we'll come back out here to the primaries. I want a nice dark primary right there that sets the feel of it. Let's take that off just a bit and see, just like you see me do with like leaves and stuff like that and some of the roses. And this is the thing I always tell everybody, you may like painting roses, but painting a bird like this is going to help you understand petal structure and how to get differentiations between your petals. And this is the technique I use on my leaves and a lot of the 30 Days of Roses. And I love this, painting all a prima like this, putting it on, pulling down like this, leaving some of that streak right through there. Let it tack for just a second and then pull off. It gives me a nice light looking edge to that feather. And I'm going to darken that right in here for contrast, right where it comes down into that wing there. But see, that's what I like. Now I'm going to put a little bit of open medium in that. And that'll give me a little longer to wipe it off so I can work a couple feathers here at a time. And I'll pull back and forth and leave some of the streaking there, like that. Let's put a little more sienna in that. Maybe paint this one down here. Maybe a bit of that sienna in that one. See, that's kind of pretty. I know it's hard for you to see that, but let me tell you, it looks amazing. Okay, again, let's have some fun, right? Put a bit of that burnt sienna right in there. That's amazing. Now, let's just touch and lift off. That'll give that nice lighter edge to that, right there like that. And gives a lot of interest to those primaries here. Let's get this out this way, here. Push that in and out. Push that in and out there, like that. And maybe a bit more precise there, like that. And let's take some of that off. Don't forget to wipe the finger there. There, like that. Let's bring these in. So this has got to go this way. And we'll come right over here. And notice where the secondaries start to pick up off of the primaries here. And we'll just add a bit of a touch or two of color. You can even use this if you want to add some of this dark, if you want to add the impression of some of those individual feathers there. And you can come back and build light and take out. As a matter of fact, I'll show you some of that there. But I do like that. And let's thin that with some open medium here. And maybe a whisper or two right in there. I like this kind of real quick little hits and movements there because it makes it look like it's feathers. And that's what I'm looking for. Now I like that color, so let's add just a touch of that. I'm constantly looking back to the bird in some areas to add some of those other tones, because it just adds more interest to those other tones there. So now you get that, see? And that's looking pretty good. Coming off like that, that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to take and use some of these same types of techniques. Matter of fact, I like that light and everything there. Could go a bit more. But I'm going to use the same types of techniques, but this time, you know, when I paint this back one here, at this time what I'm going to do is make it a little bit more atmospheric. And what I mean by that is I'm going to push it back just a little bit. Where's my other? I didn't have it out here. I didn't bring it out here, I don't think. Well, we'll use this one. So I'm going to take a bit of my blue, some gray, some white here, and I'm going to call this my atmosphere, basically. It's a real light kind of a color here. Matter of fact, we'll add a bit of extender into this, so this will just stay wet here for a bit. This is probably going to be some of the color I use into the atmosphere. So I'm going to basically go through a lot of these same colors. Let's start out here with the dark, but I'm going to add the atmosphere to it. So this dark color that I put in here won't be quite as dark, and then I'll add, and I'll usually go to like an extender instead of open medium, because extender thins it out. So I want, as I paint these on, see, I don't want them to be quite as aggressive as a color as this. So that goes back. Does that make sense? So, and I do them kind of quickly here. Here, out like that. We'll put on these nice primaries here. And that extender really makes it nice because it thins it out, it strokes, it's slippery and strokes, but it still has a bit of the grab from the wood. You could hear it grabbing there. Now I'll just take off a bit like that, and now that wing's going to set a little bit further back. Now I can bring a bit of it forward, say right up in here a bit with a touch of that dark, see? Boom, like that. And you step back and you look at that. Now see the difference when you look at that camera there. See the difference between the front wing and that back wing. And we're going to do it a little bit more to this one. A little bit more atmosphere onto this one. Okay? So, and that's how we're going to do it. So I'm going to take these colors, paint this in, and add this atmosphere here. as I work these colors here, streaking through. That might be a bit dark, but I'm just going to go with it here. Leave a bit of the streak. Just going to go with it here and just tap through a bit with my brush or with the paper towel, just to take it off a bit here. But I'm looking at that dark color here. I can't go any darker than that color. Now I can get a bit more as I come in here. In here is just going to be all mottled up, mostly some nice warm. These are the top coverts here of the wing here. And so I'm gonna come in here now. See, this is the color we can use to paint around, and I'll probably go a little bit lighter because it's lighter in the photo. So let's go lighter. Let's add some white. This is just some blue and medium beige here. Here as I come around these little guys here, you can make them and clean them up, give them more of an edge, which brings them more forward here. There, like that. Okay, that brings it more forward. Or you can blur it slightly, like I like to do. Here we go. Just blur it just a little bit there. Okay, and yeah, let's go light. Still some more light right out here by these coverts. So these will go in a little lighter. Right up here, we can put more of a feather look right up here. Again, keep it, don't get too wrapped up into the details. You can give a little bit of the idea of the feathers like that, but don't get wrapped up in too much feathering because it's not needed. It's not needed on this one. We're doing impressions. Let's come in here and make some other little feathery shapes here. Just model these colors here together, slightly darker than the others. And see, I just touch and push and lift off slightly, and it gives you a little rounded feathery shape there on the end. And on the ridge, on the Canada Goose here, they got a lot of little small ones right up here, and you can go ahead and do a lot of that. But see, that will really drive a lot of interest to the wing, which is beautiful. And again, if I was doing a pure portrait of one, I might do that, but I'm doing a painting here of them in flight, so I'm going to, basically soften some of it out. I'm going to put a bit more light, that nice warmer right up underneath here. And see, I'll pull one or two. I don't pull too long with the same color there. Let's put that edge in a bit better. There, like that. It's really a lot of fun. I love the impressionism of it, and trying to capture the look of feathers without having to paint all those individual feathers. And that's not easy. It's not an easy thing. It's taken me a lot of birds to develop, this type of look that I can do here. And so you basically, what does it more than anything else, guys, is you're following the calligraphy of the feather, the movement of the feather. You're just not putting in all of this super definition lines and the veining and stuff of the feather that you see. You're doing realism, but we don't need to do that here. Okay, so we're going to go the darker, slightly darker. Let's get some of this. Let's thin this out, some beige and some of our blues and stuff here. Oh, that's a pretty color. As we switch over here from the primaries here down into the secondaries, we're just going to stroke these on and through. I'll use some extender. This will stay wet here for a while. Let's go just, not a touch of the white, just model in some of that beige here. And these are going to start to bend down slightly, Dave. That's where you made that mistake in drawing that. So they're going to, and see, I'm just going to streak, and I use different parts of my brush here, pulling that like that, okay? And a bit more extender right there, pulling right down until we get down to this big area here, right down like that. See, I like those edges like that, right in there like that. Right, that transition right there of the, let's get some of our darker color model that up a bit, and we'll push that in. Just get that look of the primaries right to the secondaries there. Bit better. Pull. See, I can just whisper off those edges. That's what I like. Just whisper off those edges a bit. So again, you get the feeling of feathers. Look at how much that wing sets back. It's a little bit of that atmosphere. It's a little bit of that transparency. Works every time. So we'll grab just a bit of this right out here. Break that. Remember, we just break that edge slightly. We'll go back a little lighter. Bit of the atmosphere, a little bit lighter. Set some of those in again, those little coverts there. Right like that. Without having to do all those feathers, see, we just give the idea of the feathers. And maybe a bit more light, just there like that. Just the idea of that light. And you can, you know, you can back paint up and around like this if you want to give some more of the feeling of those feathers. And pull out a little dark, just a tiny bit of that dark. Make sure you have a little bit of the atmosphere in there. Pulling out there like that, but that just really sets a wing back like that. Let's set some smaller lights right in there like that. There. That's a pretty good look to the wing. Now we'll go take some of this and some beige and some of this light. Let's add some extender. I'm using an extender back here to keep it, you know, weak. And you have these slightly larger feathers here coming back and around. We'll just paint the movement of it with a model brush and see it'll get that nice movement. Let's add, this comes out slightly, a little bit of that feather movement, see? Just model that brush and give that feather movement and it'll look like feathers. You know, and the other thing that, you know, a lot of the Impressionists know, and we do know this, I'm going to put an angled feather right there. There like that. A lot of the Impressionists, what we do know is this is a bird, right? Okay. And it's a Canada goose. And we know subconsciously you're going to see feathers. So if we don't overpaint it, because if I overpaint it, they become stiff. And if I don't overpaint it, then they will stay nice and soft. And if it's not overpainted where they're kind of stiff, your eye will see feathers. That's Impressionism. That's what Impressionism tells us. So I will just give the look there, and your eye will see all of those feathers without me having to do all of those magnificent feathers that are on the Canada Goose. They're all over here right now. As a matter of fact, a lot of them spent the winter here. Thousands of them. Those of you that are on our social media, I post all kinds of pictures. We had the snow geese and a lot of Canada geese here. Probably 30, 40,000 just right around our little town here. And they're now beginning to head back north. You know, and some of them will stay around, and they're already sitting on their nests and stuff. So here we go. See, just a little extra look, but I don't want to do too much of that up here. I want those edges, maybe a few little fine edges right out there. And then that's about it. You know, you don't need very much. And I'll have that, okay? So now a couple of areas that I do want to hit again. I'm going to come up here and grab some yellow, a little bit of burnt sienna, some of this. And I'm going to add a little touch here right to her foot. Maybe a bit of that kind of greenish yellow right down there, a bit. There like that. So you see that come in there on her foot. She could have a bit more going on up there, but I think that's pretty good for right now. So we're at almost a minute and 10 here. This goes by fast, but we've got a pretty good look on her there, so I'm going to come back and do some more textures. I'm going to paint this one kind of the same way, but I'm going to make it more atmospheric. So I will add some blue to my colors, and I will use it a little bit more transparent. So I'm going to add some extender and stuff to my colors as I go put this one on here. Let's just move this over here like this, okay? And we'll show you that, but then we'll come back and I'll show you. I'll put in some trees and some mist and some other little stuff there. Maybe a bit more textures onto her and stuff like that, but they're kind of fun like this, okay? All right, and it's going to make a nice painting, especially framed up and there's a nice painting, because we're not overdoing it. We're not overworking it. We're keeping it very artistic, okay? All right, so I'm going to paint this one. I'll show you a few little things along the way, and then we'll come back and paint up some trees and some mist and all that kind of good stuff. See you in a minute. Hi everyone, welcome back. Okay, so I got the second one in there just very simplistically and just push back so you can see the difference between the two. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back up onto the front one here and maybe work a few more little edges with some darks and some contrasting colors here, some blue, some burnt sienna and stuff. And what I'll do is look for a little bit more powerful of an edge, and not everywhere, in just a few places that I can, in a few places that will help really bring this one forward. So I'll look maybe right up through here, tap a bit of it through, scrub just a bit here. Like, for example, one of the areas that I like to work is wherever feathers are going to fold into each other or something like that. I like to work those areas again. Let's take a little bit of medium beige, a bit of the burnt sienna, some dark. We'll add some extender, or you could use open medium since we're going to go a little thicker. And like right into this area, see, I'll put in more color, which actually advances this bird. And I'm using my small number 4 filbert here, and so this is kind of an interesting area on the bird. And I don't want to do perfect feathers or so, but I want to cross the colors a bit like this. So you see me hold the brush like this when I do landscapes and stuff, and I can even come in there with a little bit of texture right there at the front and really kind of pop that little area forward. Some taps of some light color through here. So I'll work some of the, I don't work the whole bird, just areas of the bird. And that I think will, enhance. So areas where feathers cross over each other and stuff, I can work those edges a bit more, get a touch more interest in there. So like on some of these darks, and it's nice just to do it with a small brush here. So you can get a little interest. Here's some of the darks coming right across. And sometimes I'll take the edge of the light and push back and forth right in there. See how I create that little edge, that little variation, little sparkles and stuff like that, that help bring the, bring this part of the bird forward. Let's take a bit of that dark right there, right down like that maybe, and then take some of the light with some of that dirty color in there, which I like there, and then let's reset the light again with some textures right up on top of that. And I might have to let that dry and do it again. If it starts to blend too much, like that's starting to blend too much, I'll let that dry and then I just do that again. And I'll do these kinds of things, several times. Like right up in here, this is a nice little area to drag across and bring some extra little brush calligraphy interest in, right in there. And it helps pop this one farther forward. That's what it does more than anything else. Now, let's go in, before we run out of time on this video here, let's go in and let's work. I want to put in and show you how I'm going to put in some trees and stuff. I'm going to use, let's go back to some of that gray. We'll model in some of these other colors I have. My larger brush and some extender. I'm going to work it thin here and transparent and thin. And I'll be coming up in certain parts of the goose here. I'll work the color right up into the edges and stuff. But here I'm also going to use some light color as well. And blues. We're going to work some blues too. And so sometimes, I'll hit or I'll work right up to the edge of the subject here and, paint it more clean. Sometimes I'll maybe even take just a bit of the streak of this atmospheric blue we used right there and add some of that. But I'm gonna do something really fun here with you. I don't think I've shown this on the channel, and I do it on my selling paintings all the time, where I put it into the mist and stuff. So yeah, we'll take this, and so I'll work this in. so I can work some mist here. And large brush just goes real quick and, you know, paint up. And, you know, like you see me do like in other bird portraits. Let me be a little more careful here. Let's go to this brush here. One that has a little more of an edge. You know, some of my brushes, I love to paint with old brushes. Everyone always goes, oh, I got to get all these new brushes. And no, you don't have to have all these new brushes. And I was over teaching once, a real funny little story, just real quick. I was over teaching once over at Taichung University over in Taiwan. And I had told everyone, grab your old brush. Well, they were all excited about taking a class with me that they all went out and bought all the brushes new. And so I saw everyone rubbing them on their tables and doing everything to kind of break it down to use the older brush. And I said, oh, you don't have to do that. Just never, you know, especially if you're going to study and follow along with the stuff that I do, never get rid of your old brushes because we use them in so many different techniques. Let's put a little light. So around the subject here, I will be, you know, it's all about edges, right? It's all about edges. I'm constantly telling you about edges and stuff like that. And so around the subject here, we'll clean up and paint up, and that really brings the subject here forward more. Let's put a bit of blue right up in here as well. Here, we don't have to have it everywhere, just right up into there. We'll put that hint of the blue because we're going to put some mist and stuff like that, and a little hint of this blue is going to be fantastic. Maybe even a lighter blue right up here, going right up against the front of this wing. That will really bring that forward there. And some of that color just kind of smooshed around in there. That's going to be neat. Okay, so I'm going to use this brush. This is an 8. And what I'm going to do is take some of my green, some burnt sienna right down into here. Maybe a touch of my atmospheric blue here. But gray it way out. A little bit of blue. Maybe even a touch of violet here. Or a touch of the red. If it looks green, you can get that red in there. Here like this. This is a real soft, but I want to go more gray. So maybe even a little, to get a good cooler gray to sink something into the fog, get it a touch more violet. That's good right there. Touch more violet gray here. But we'll have modeled in, we'll even model in a little warms and stuff like that here. And yeah, that might be just a touch dark. I want this to really be misty here. So what we're going to do, and let me pull this over just a bit here. What I'm going to do is just put in some impression here. I love the paper towel. Yeah, these are Costco brand paper towels. You know, I have people ask me, what brand of paper towels are you using? Well, you know, when you're learning, you worry about all that kind of stuff. And that's very true. But let's just put in the impression here. Some movement. It can be very soft here. Of some of the tree, an idea of the tree here. And maybe one that's going to come up over here. Here like this. Just movement. I paint for the idea of some of this stuff and movement back here. And you can put different layers. One can go a little closer. Stuff. And usually when I get down and away from my subject there, I'm going to go to a bigger brush. And I try to do it very efficiently and large here. Just the ideas of it here. Some movement. Just, you know, trees are more of these kind of V shapes here. And that's what we want to do them at, is these little V-shaped movements here, right up to the edge of that one. Here. Right down like that. I love this. You know, I have a customer that wants, I told him I was going to be doing this. And he says, okay, I want to buy it. And I said, no. as I have a place for this. I want to put this in my gallery. I have a place. But if it turns out right and you like it, then I'll do another one for you. So that's what we do. We're artists. That's what we do. So I'll get this gray, maybe not exactly the same, a little lighter, model up some of these colors, sometimes a little bit of green in there because it is a little pine tree. And, you know, I'll work these colors around here. Boom, just around. Override them just a bit, just so it's just really, and we can get a little heavier down here. That'll be kind of nice. Just don't worry about being perfect. Just move color. See? Just move color there. And it's just an idea of those. And we'll go a bit darker, maybe a bit of green right out here. And maybe push one that's right here. So it's right up in front, so you're starting to see a bit more color. So when you step back and look at that, see, you see the layers of that. You know, as we go back up over here, let me just lighten this up. Let's go even lighter yet. Get some thin here. Pull that through, just ideas. Let's go even lighter yet. Almost, boy, it's just almost a grade white here. Just sketchy. Let them maybe not quite so high, so you don't cut a line, you know, down here. You know, the more impressionistic you are with this, the more realistic, and it's true, the more realistic your geese will look, because you're going against a purely casual. And then the lines, see how as I'm putting that on, how the lines on these other geese start to come more realistic here, like that. So yeah, it's really a lot of fun, and you can develop this part of it as much as you want. That's up to you. I'm going to put maybe a bit more of a precise one here, a little bit more farther forward here, right like that. Let's pull that down, blur that one further out in the back there. And so I'll just, you know, pull a bit more color, a bit of green, a little bit different here, like that. I just love the edges of the paper towel. It just takes away the stroke, you know, that precision of it takes away the stroke of the painting, which can happen sometimes. There. And I used to find doing this kind of stuff so hard, because I wanted to be, you know, just so perfect with it, and it just always looked so stiff. And now I just like it when that comes through. Now, okay, so let's continue on. Like, maybe let's go really thin back through here, and just the idea of some of these colors back up through here, and the movement of this back up through here, so it doesn't feel all of it. And see, this is what, if you really wanted to create a misty look into the painting, you would see just little bits of the colors and stuff coming up into some of these other areas back here, see? So that's where you get some of that mist. Okay, so now to do more mist, we're going to go thin, and usually I let it all dry, but we'll just work it in here. Let's just get some of our grays and some of our lights here. We'll go, yeah, that's going to be fine. I might have to get more white out here, and we're just going to work that in and out and around here. Like Just, and I really want to get some of this color up a little heavier around my forward subject here, so it pops it out a little cleaner, and then I'll just take this and just work it right down here into the trees here a bit. And this is what's going to give you, see how it gives you that kind of misty look. You can let it dry as well and do this very thin and transparent here as well. That works. And that works pretty nice. I just want a bit of that. I really want to clean up this nice color. Really pops the head of this one off. There. Push some of that out and around. There. That's kind of neat. And if it starts to get too much, which can happen, okay, then you take your bigger brush and you just start working through your background here to soften it all out. And that's what's going to give you even more of a mist here. You just kind of blur it and soften it so you see just a touch or two of some of that, upside, that back movement here. You don't need a lot of it, just a bit of it. Here. Push that back. It's really a lot of fun. And sometimes I will do this kind of stuff and then put it into a picture frame and then go back and look at it again, after it's in a frame for a little bit. We have some of that nice blue we can take up here towards the top. Just mist some of this back here. There we go. Yeah, that looks nice. Just lightly tap the edges and it sends it right back, further back into the painting there. And yeah, you can see that back there. And I might put, I like this blue. The blue could also be a touch more violet here. We could work because the violet, we did use a touch of that violet in as our darks here. So you could, let's thin this out and get this lighter here. Work a bit of that violet color in there. Oh, that's, yeah, that'd be kind of pretty there too. Step back, take a look at it. All different kinds of ways here to do this. Let's push a bit of that in. And then I'll soften that back with some, I got to get some more white out here too, if I find it. I'll soften that back with, some of my light color here, my light gray color, softening it back. But I want to get a couple of, that's too much. A couple of different blue violets in there. That's pretty colors right there. A little bit mottled on the brush here. Yeah, see, those pretty colors in there. And I'll soften this out. Maybe right across the top up there like that. And don't forget, one of the greatest softening and things that you have is your paper towel. To run that through here like this, especially get some of that nice mottled color like that, and just soften that out. And then you'll have to take some of it up a little closer to the bird, but that just does wonders there for your painting here. So I'll take, let's do my 3/4 inch brush here and soften this out. And so this is what I do. So not too bad, a couple hours on the painting. I worked on it without you there for about 15-20 minutes. So hour and a half, 2 hours, somewhere around in there. You should be able to, yeah, that works nice. Get this painting kind of out and completed there. Keep your, you can get more aggressive with your trees. whatever you want to do. You could put a little mountain. I always think you could put a mountain or something into the back. That would be really nice as well. All kinds of ideas to have this. I did a painting once, was really, I love that painting. I mean, it's a DVD class, but it's we have a flight of geese going behind a mountain and a lake and a little bit of snow coming up onto the mountain. I call it South Before Winter, and I love that painting. I sold it to a collector overseas, and I always regretted that, because I've always loved that painting. And you always say, "Oh yeah, I'll do another one." You never do. You could, but I just don't go there sometimes. But there you go. There's that one. And if I feel like a color gets too heavy, like up there at the top, then I'll just back it back out to its white, which is kind of nice too, to leave just some of that light back out through here like that. So that's just some ideas for you to do. So you can pull some light and some streaks of some light through. You know how I like to do that in paintings too. Some of those streaks come through, like maybe there's a bit of light, coming through. You see me do that with roses and stuff like that. So I'll streak that down through. Well, I did that on that South Before Winter painting, and I really kind of like that. It's like light coming through the mist and the fog a bit. Adds a touch more, movement, interest to the painting, so all kinds of stuff. But there you go, and I'll work on adding some more little stuff there, but that's what I'm going to do. Hope you enjoyed it. Okay, I had a great time painting with you guys again. And it's a nice painting, and it's done really fast. And, sometimes, especially those of you that are beginners, here's a little piece of advice for you. We get wrapped up, we think it's a big painting, we get wrapped up in all the details. I do too. We get wrapped up in all the details, and sometimes a big painting doesn't need it. Now, the moose back there that I did a lot of details on it and spent a lot of time on that painting. But it doesn't need to be. That's what I want you to understand. It doesn't need to be. You can have very beautiful, large, casual paintings like this that, that have a lot of power and do a lot of things. And they don't need to, let's put a little streak back through here. They don't need a whole lot of work and detail like into the feathers and stuff like that. They can just have, nice interest and movement, pretty simplistic, keeping it pretty simplistic like I'm going to do here with this one. Leave it a little bit more simplistic, okay? And it's a nice painting. So if there's other things that you want to see, now those of you that like to follow along all my videos, I have one called Racing for Home, which is going to be a big trawler with a big storm and a big, huge, powerful ocean. We're going to do that one. It's going to be about the same size as this one. I'm going to do that one. Matter of fact, I'll probably start filming that first thing in the morning. So that one's going to be coming up. Then we got to do some more, landscapes and flowers. I got another beautiful flower. It's got a beautiful frame. So now I got to paint something to go inside this beautiful frame. So we got a lot more stuff coming. Make sure that you click like, guys. We really appreciate it. Click like on the video. Help us with that. Leave a comment. The more you like, the more you comment, the more YouTube advances our videos and shows it to more people. And the other thing is, the more time you watch it, it really helps. It's called watch time. And the more time you watch the video, that gives us, they say people like it, and so they put it out there. So if you want to help the channel, you can do that, okay? You can also, put in membership too. In the membership, I put in photos and, there's extra videos and all that kind of stuff into the membership. So if you want to support the channel and help us grow, that's one way to do it, okay? And enjoy. And like I say, for the membership, we'll put that drawing in for you so you can look at and do this one if you want, okay? You can bring it forward, push it back, do whatever you want to it, okay? It's a lot of fun. All right, and I'll see you guys on the next one, probably next day or two, okay? All righty, see you later.